I teach a lot of classes. I do some strategy work. I have a good time wherever I go, and whether you like it or not, we're going to have a good time. So I'll lead with that. So I thought this thing was sort of starting to first be about leadership, so I kind of went that way. And I had to figure out, well, geez, leadership, what am I going to talk about? So I thought about all the things I do and all the things I want to do, and I kind of try to come up with something that's, kind of a sexy title, but kind of safe. And I threw it out the window, and this is what I got. So, here it is. Let's go. So, a little bit about me. I'm a really good instructor. I'm pretty good at that. I'm a pretty good father. I'd probably give myself an A there, because instructors were always grading. That's what we do. So I give myself an A there. And so, I'm married. I'm an okay husband. Depending on how I'm not a bad husband, but I'm probably not getting an A most of the time. I'm kind of like one of those, maybe a C+. It depends. So that's a little bit about me, and what I know about leadership really comes from a lot of different places. It comes from Boy Scouts, what I'm still deeply involved with. It comes from my personal life. It comes from teaching leadership a bunch, which it's amazing what you learn when you teach. So probably learn as much there as anything. So there's a lot of stuff about leadership that's really good to know. And as I thought about this, the idea that, I don't know if any of you ever have been to counseling before. I've read about it. I've never done it, but I've been told that I should. But one of the things, you go in there, you say, blah, 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 here's my problem. And they go, well, how's that working for you? And it doesn't matter what the therapist is, that they ask you that. So I've heard. So what I'm about to tell you, it's working for me. It's working actually pretty good. There's some areas that I could probably do a little better in. But it's, for the most part, working. So when you think about innovation and the limit of innovation, there's all kinds of innovation out there. One of the kinds of innovation is really when you have two very common things, like peanut butter, like chocolate, and you kind of put them together like Mr. Reese did in about 1928, and you get something kind of cool that's out there that's different, the Reese's Cup. So chocolate is going to be our metaphor for my personal junk, and peanut butter is going to be a metaphor for my business junk. So we're going to put these together and make it something useful for you. So on the personal side, maybe the epitome of the best personal relationship you can have, theoretically, when it works, is a good marriage. So what is a good marriage? Well, a fellow by the name of John Gottman, who's the professor emeritus at University of Washington, who did a lot of research in this, discovered that you could predict with a 90 to 94% accuracy who would be successfully married in a year. Well, that's pretty good. That's like real numbers. That's like serious good stuff. I've read about everything he's ever written, trying to help that side. So what is a successful marriage? As sort of the engineering guide that I kind of pretend to be sometimes, I need to operationally define this. So a successful marriage, John Gottman says, is one that lasts and you're mostly happy. Okay, low bar. I'm good. So when they ask, what's the primary factor in these personal relationships that are happy, he came up with 4 what he calls horsemen of the apocalypse that are predictors of divorce. One of them is contempt, stonewalling, defensiveness, and criticism. And so these each are very distinctive behavioral patterns, and they have a certain look. So it's like, why do you work all the time? What do you mean, why do I work all the time? I can't believe you're even asking. You know why I work all the time. I'm working to provide you, and you not just you people, a better future. So you could, and it's like, whoa, I'd like to spend more time with you. Oh, okay. I thought you were criticizing me for working so much. So you can, does this ring a bell? Are there bits and pieces of this? What about, it's her again. She really doesn't sound like that, but sometimes in my head, that voice goes. And so those are the things that are not good. Those are criticism, stonewalling, contempt. Those are elements of a personal relationship. When those very distinctive patterns are there, are big danger signals. So we're gonna switch gears now. I'm gonna do this a lot to keep you. What the heck's he doing? Peanut butter. So this is the other side. So when they did some studies on what makes people happy at work, they first said, well, we need to ask managers. Managers know this sort of thing. And they asked managers, what makes your employees happy? And like the modal response was compensation. Well, they thought, well, this is a good study. Sounds good. Let's ask employees what they think. They disagreed. Employees thought that the thing that most made them happy was trust. Or excuse me, the relationship with their proximal supervisor, that relationship aspect. So, and when you ask managers what makes them happy, they never said compensation, which is what they said for those that work for them. They also said this relationship with their proximal supervisor, their boss. And if you go one deeper in sort of statistics, and that kind of followed the 80-20 rule, so if you go one deeper, 80-20 on 80-20, it's like 64% of that, the variance in that relationship was determined by trust. Wow, that's pretty cool. So what's this leadership and organizations thing, and why does it matter? Why am I even up here? Besides Dave said, hey, I got an idea for you. Oh my God, I'm in. The idea is that this is a big problem, and maybe I should have led with this, but the stuff that Andy cited earlier, the Gallup poll, the employee disengagement, it's a $300 billion problem. And not only that, but Deloitte, the accounting folks, they published a study in September of last year that said that up to 35.5% of the variance in a firm's value is due to the quality of leadership. So obviously, it's kind of a significant problem. I mean, if you're a mergers and acquisitions guy, 35% overpaying or underpaying by 35% is a big deal. So I've got a continuum up here. This is what I don't usually use PowerPoints, but hey, I can do it. So we have this thing, and this is kind of what Andy was talking about, kind of borrowing from that Gallup research, where you have this continuum of engagement. Andy said, 71% I think is what he cited, and the latest research were sort of on this kind of the crappy side. So this is where you want to be. And I got sort of a visual for you what this looks like. I want you to imagine you work at Walmart at a store, and you got to be there. This is the kind of job you guys have to show up for. And you're a cart wrangler. For those of you that are watching this from outside of Arkansas, that's one of those folks who gets the shopping carts and brings them in. So if you're an employee and you got to show up at work and you got to be there. So where do you park? Where do you put your car? So if you're a very actively engaged employee, what you might do is you park further out, because you might think to yourself, I want to save the best spots for the customers, kind of be aligned with the mission, the vision of the organization, serve others. Okay, and if you're passively engaged, it's like, if there's a good spot, I might take it. But if you're passively disengaged, you're kind of looking for the close spot. And if you're actively disengaged, you're like circling the lot, waiting for the spot right in front, like the handicap spot, even though you might not be handicapped. But it goes even further like this. You get out of your car, you park your car, and there's a shopping cart right there. And if you kind of like walk around it, that's kind of you could bring it in. You could do that. I mean, it's on your way. You could do that. Or what if you see a shopping cart? It's like, well, it's over there, and you go over there and you get it, and you bring it back in because it's on your way. Except you went out of your way. That's active engagement. But active disengagement, that's where you see the cart, it's in your way. You could take it in because you're parked in the handicap spot and you're not handicapped, and there's a cart right there, but you go, and you send it out in the parking lot. That's active disengagement. There's a lot of that out there. So that's really why it matters, and that's what it looks like, and you've got this in all kinds of relationships. So we're going to kind of start bringing this together, and my time on this is so short. I'm used to talking for several hours. And so as I thought about what I want to speak, I was telling one of my speakers earlier, I was like, the trick is not what you say, it's what you don't say. So it all really starts with semantics, which is really just wordplay. But let's go a little deeper in this sort of a study. So a fellow at Vanderbilt kind of came up with a continuum, a table, and I've kind of adapted it a little bit to fit my purpose a little better and added a little bit of color to it. But we have management and leadership. This isn't a moral thing. I'm not saying that leadership is good and management is bad, but when we pull these words apart, there's a little bit of a clarity that comes about what you want to do here. So we have dimensions, I think there's 7 of them, that we can look at in terms of pulling these words apart a little bit. When we look at the relationship, there's overlap, certainly, but they go together. The relationship of a management is often impersonal. Leadership is a very personal relationship. You can see this unfold here, and I'm going to spend just a moment on the last 2, this method and governance idea, that I can make you a manager. I give you the keys to the place, tell you to show up, you're in charge. You're the manager, but I can't make you a leader. Others have to make you a leader. It's peer or self-imposed. And when I'm the manager, I can fire you. I can do all kinds of stuff. I can withhold your pay, maybe, if it's depending on the law. I can do lots of stuff. I can make you work crappy shifts. I can do things to you. I can rule or govern by fear of punishment. But if I'm a leader, I use a pull strategy, and I do love or consent. It's a total different thing. And I use a chain of influence versus a chain of command. So how does leadership happen? It sounds pretty cool. It's like, yeah, give me some of that. Can you get some at the door? Where do you buy it? So how does leadership happen? As we think about how leadership happens, go back to that personal relationship. Go back to that corporate relationship. And again, remember I said it's not so much what you talk about, but what you don't talk about. We're going to put some stuff together here, and we're going to make some pretty cool things here. So the idea is, what happens when it doesn't work out? How do we know? So there's a thing called a psychological contract, which is kind of the agreement that we have between us of like, okay, you're going to talk for under the certain amount of time, and I'm going to listen, and we're going to do this thing. And it's kind of the agreement we have. But then there's how things really work. And at companies and in relationships, you may be married to somebody. It's like, you weren't like this when we started. You've changed. And maybe where you work, this isn't what we talked about. This wasn't how it's supposed to be. And you said zero tolerance policy for sexual harassment. And this is apparently not it, because this isn't how things work. I mean, I know the policy, the explicit things, but there's a psychological contract. And when that's violated in a personal relationship, we have those four horsemen, and we've already shown what they look like. And in a corporate relationship, they look kind of the same. We have organizational cynicism, which looks a lot like criticism and that sort of thing that pops up. We have involuntary selection, which there's a word for that. You're fired. Or laid off, stuff like that. And we have loss of productivity that Andy had talked about and that I had alluded to with the Deloitte study and with the extended Gallup research that costs us $300 billion. So that's what happens when it doesn't happen. And we know what happens when it does. You stay married and you're more or less happy. Or, the other side of it, you stay employed and you're more or less happy. So in organizations, another little thing I do is I think organizations are kind of like people, like organisms. The organization as an organism is kind of a fascinating concept to me, because why are they any different? They do things, they pay taxes, they have a lifespan. In organizational behavior classes, we study and we talk about this. The contexts are very similar. So what's next? In conclusion, really, to be a leader, as you put this together, John Gottman in the personal relationship side, remember chocolate, said it really looks like this. What you really have to do is you simply have to turn towards someone. Instead of you and I are having this argument, you did this, I did this, you did this, I did this. The ball's going back and forth, back and forth. But if we can take the problem, and here's the problem, and we have the shared perspective, like, look, I didn't like that it happened either. I mean, I really didn't plan for that to happen. It was kind of a bummer. How can we work together to solve it? Because there's a trust, and trust is about risk, dependency, and discretion. And in the professional context, there's certain risk. We're going back to peanut butter. There's certainly risk, there's dependency, but there's also discretion. And this element of discretion is a very, very important one, because that continuum, what that boils down to is a thing called organizational citizenship behaviors, which is what you do with your discretionary effort. Where do you park? Do you throw the car out of the way? Are you engaged in your relationship? And by the way, it doesn't matter, gay, straight, doesn't matter. John Gottman, he thought of that. Doesn't matter. The answers are the same. Turning towards someone is what does it. Discretion is what does it. It's choosing to engage. So as you think about whether you're in a chocolate or a peanut butter kind of a relationship, it really doesn't matter. What you have to do if you want to lead, if you want to implement some of these amazing ideas, and I kind of giggle when I call them colleagues that they have given up here today. All you have to do is choose with your discretionary effort to get involved, to turn towards, to say, what can I do? And it's simply being engaged, giving influence, and listening, turning towards. It's a very simple thing. It's not that complicated. So with that, I appreciate your time, your attention. I hope to see you all in class, and thank you very much.